This is the face of a man who is incredibly irritated with himself that he has not read a book from this company sooner. Today's episode of Readus Reviews is brought to you by Comic Bento, the monthly graphic novel subscription service that sends a box of graphic novels straight to your door every first of the month. And for the month of July, it was completely filled with graphic novels from Valiant Comics. And so, by popular demand from a Twitter poll I posted last weekend regarding which graphic novel you wanted me to review, also quick shout out to Valiant Comics for spreading the word about the poll, you all let me know that you wanted me to review the graphic novel Harbinger Wars. So with that, let's get started. So over the years, a secret organization called Project Rising Spirit has been hunting down and weaponizing superpowered individuals called Psiots. Then one night, an individual named Bloodshed, a superpowered android created by Rising Spirit to undertake dangerous missions and to hunt these Psiots down for the company, that recently became consciously aware and decided to revolt against them, broke a bunch of the captured Psiots out of a research facility in Nevada. But while the revolt resulted in the Psiots breaking off into two groups, one led by Bloodshed, and the other led by the oldest Psiot in the facility named Cronus, their escape, in one way or another, attracted the attention of not only Rising Spirit, but two other factions as well. The Harbinger Foundation, ran by Toyo Harada, aka the Japanese psychic love child of Tony Stark and Magneto, and a group of Psiots called the Renegades, who's led by Harada's ex-pupil Peter Stanchek. And now all four of these groups are fighting for freedom, control, and power. Not necessarily in that order. So with that, let's talk about the story, which I thought was pretty enjoyable, honestly. There was an even ratio between action and plot. And given the fact that this was the very first story I ever read within the Valiant universe, it was pretty easy to follow. I feel that the exposition that was given throughout the story was done in a way that was tasteful, and also done in a way where people like me who aren't really familiar with the Valiant universe can easily follow along and know what the fuck they're getting into. No, there weren't any asterisks in this book, but it was done in a way where they weren't really necessary. Once you read the story and see how it's paced throughout, you'll understand why I said that. But if I were to actually list a pet peeve that I had within the story, I would have to say the way the conflict in Act 3 happened. Now, I'm not saying that the story is dumb. What I am saying is that with my personal preference in storytelling and how the conflict came to be in the third act, it was dumb. It was like the characters responsible were stupid and selfish and dumb. And the whole thing was dumb. Like Helen of Troy dumb. It was dumb. For real. Now with that being said, let's move on to the characters that stood out to me. Starting with Cronus. As a leader, Cronus was cool. I really dug him as a leader. He did what he had to do given the situation that was presented to him, and with that he did a good job. He kind of reminded me of Valiant from Kingdom of Heaven in that regard. He knew what had to be done, but at the same time he didn't go off the deep end, and he knew how not to go off the deep end, and I really appreciate that in this character. Toyo Harada. I'm honestly at a loss. I don't know who the fuck this guy is. Is he a hero? Is he a villain? All I know is that he's Japanese, he's psychic, he's kind of sweet, he's kind of sucks. I don't know what's happening with the guy. But I'll tell you one thing, I'm interested to find out more about his ass. Because from his decisions and his motivations in this book, it's easy to tell that this character is normally selfish and egotistical. But at the same time, he also does some awesome stuff in the name of Psiots and against Rising Spirit. So yeah, if anything, I'll definitely be reading more stories with him in it just to get a better understanding of his character and his personality. And Bloodshot. Bloodshot, I feel, is what the MCU version of the Winter Soldier could be post-Hydra. If Captain America wasn't there all the time to put a hand on his chest every time he pumped the fucking brakes of his car. And I say that to mean that in my opinion, his character was incredibly refreshing to me. I feel like it's good to see a character like that find his own way within a universe without like a big brother influence to properly guide him. He makes his own decisions and he makes his own mistakes. He's trying to do right by the world, but at the same time can't help but to fall back into old habits. And it's because of these decisions and these motivations and these actions and mistakes that he's constantly walking the fine line between hero and anti-hero, and it's definitely interesting to watch. And then there's Peter Stanchek, who unfortunately to me is a tad bit bland. What do I mean by a tad bit bland? I mean the way that Hal Jordan used to be before Jeff Johns started writing for him. He had almost no personality from what I read in the book, and I honestly thought that the other members of the Renegades were more interesting than him. Which, considering the build-up that happened in the beginning of the story, is a tad bit disappointing. But I'm definitely interested in reading more stories with him in it, due to A, wanting to see if he improves in the personality department, and B, to see how his relationship with Harada either improves, or to see how it fell out to begin with. But yeah, all in all, this was a decent story. The one thing I appreciated about it is that it's not a hard book to pick up if you're a Valiant noob. And I'd say it did its job in making me interested in reading more stories from this company. And with that being said, I was definitely surprised that $14.99 was its retail asking price. I thought it would be more. But as far as whether or not I would pay full price for this, I would pay full price for this. So readers, your homework assignment for the day. Write in the comments section below if you've read Harbinger Wars. Write whether or not you liked it, or even write what your favorite Valiant story arc is if you read Valiant Comics. And if you want to participate in next month's Comic Bento Readus Reviews poll, make sure to follow me on my Twitter at READUS_101 and look out for the voting poll. And then of course, if you actually want to watch the review, you should probably subscribe to the channel. Because you know, common sense and stuff. Anyway, this is Readus 101. Class dismissed.